I'm resident of Collinwood, Jules
I
Say for YouTube. I'm joined by my buddy Gordon Dymowski, my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk Dark Shadows episodes 759 and 760. I'll get the numbers right, I promise. 759, narrated by Grayson Hall, written by Sam Hall, her husband, directed by Henry Kaplan. So Laura is in town, obviously, the Phoenix arc. They're wrapping up the Phoenix arc is what they're doing. I really enjoyed Angelique in this episode. Laura Parker is in both these episodes, steals them in every way. The fact that she creates she's sitting there in the old house and she just wants Quentin to sit there and watch her. He's like, what do you want me to watch?
What happened to him?
And as this is going on, Laura is conjuring up some sort of spell, and Angelique catches fire. And Quentin is so horrified at this proceeding, he tells Magda. Magda tells Barnabas, and he's like,
really? Quentin's nothing prepared Quentin for this.
Yeah, that's true. What did you think, Patrick? Go ahead.
I thought they were fine episodes. These episodes are really the only place I can think of Barnabas going all Colonel John H. Hannibal Smith on the situation. And really, Barnabas is a very reactive character. And his bravery is often the bravery of just necessity. Okay, I got to do this now. I don't have any choice. I've got to be brave. I don't want to be, but here we go. And to see him play this situation this many moves ahead and set up not one but two royal screws for a magic user, because the magic users are always so arrogant on Dark Shadows, and for him to say, no, you don't. No, you don't. I got some magic too. And it's lying there with fang marks on its neck, about to do anything I tell it to, sort of. And then to not only to fool Laura, but to make it this long con that then pays off later with the doppelganger of Barnabas, which really gives the audience a lot of credit. For memory and for intelligence, just imaginative storytelling, to not only get her twice, but to include the old pillows under the blanket trick, which is just an insult to intelligence, but it works, and to get her on that, F you with bells on, Laura Collins.
But I think the main reason why Barnabas can get away with all that is that he knows that Laura has a timetable, an existential timetable. Coming up against someone like Angelique, removing the past, he knows that they're almost perfectly matched. Mm-hmm. That he is not going to mess with someone, because he knows whatever he could think of, she could think of something, if not to overpower it, to counter it. Every time he faces a menace, it's almost equal, but with Laura. She's motivated by wanting to reunite with her kids. Mm-hmm. She knows that she's got, if she doesn't do it soon, she's gone. In fact, even Angelique, when she eventually comes back, she says, you're in the presence of your enemy, and your enemy is time. And that, I think, is key.
In D&D terms, it is a perfect model of what happens when lawful evil, which is Laura, because she obeys very, very clear set of rules, and she sticks with one type of magic and one type of magic only, when lawful evil meets chaotic neutral.
Sir, keep your sex life out of this.
It's true, though. It's true. That's really what we're looking at. And it's a little bit of what Angelique herself will run into, because, she draws from a wider pool of magic, but not as wide as Count Patofi.
Mm-hmm.
And Patofi will hand her hat the way that she hands Laura her hat. A lot of hat handing.
And the other thing you have to keep in mind, and I don't think this is three-dimensional chess playing. I think it's just more of a probably he thought maybe once, he was covering all his bases. Edward, after George tells him, don't set a fire near Laura. What does Edward do? He sets a fire near Laura. Now, I don't think Barnabas thought, oh, yeah, Edward's that much of an idiot. He's going to do that anyway. But he kind of made sure that even that eventuality was covered, even if he couldn't see that eventuality.
Yep. Yeah, because Edward's a bit of a doubting Thomas on the whole Laura being supernatural. He does view Laura as a menace, but in a different way than what Barnabas does. He doesn't quite believe the whole supernatural aspect, but he does listen to Barnabas at first. Barnabas has made a very bold chess move in this episode by, hey, keep the kids away from Laura, keep fire away from her. And he bites Burke, but he bites Dirk Wilkins in this episode. He's just laying there. He's just sitting there on the floor. The fan marks are in his neck. He shows Laura this too. And she's like,
voila.
Yeah, like
behind. And he smiles. It's the second time in the series he smiles.
Behind door number 1. It's
Dirk Wilkins. You almost expect him to say, whoomp, there it is.
You do. You really do. How great was Diana Malay as Laura?
She serves her purpose.
Mm-hmm.
She serves.
She does. She does a wonderful job, both in this and obviously in 1960s, the 1960s as well, the early, mid 60s. I really like the fact that they got her to return. It doesn't quite feel exactly the same thing. It's something old, but yet something new with Laura here. I love the fact that we talked about how there's a Jeremiah tie-in. That was really well done. And I love Barnabas's question to her, were you a Phoenix even then?
Are you now? Have you ever been?
Right. It's such an intriguing little thing that he does, because again, he was a kid when he saw Laura. He was so attracted by her, as you guys both pointed out when we did an episode that touched upon Laura before.
Yeah, but that's, I think, the genius of this kind of rewrite of the Phoenix arc, because what the writer, and I don't know if Sam Hull wrote the last episode that we saw with Laura, but he suggests a kind of, it's almost like he's pulling canon out of thin air and reinventing a whole separate history that fits in. Because the original Laura arc was, okay, Laura's back, weird things happen, they find, oh wait, there's this body here, there's a body here, Peter Guthrie, and it's a rough draft for Barnabas, because they wanted to see, hey, look, can we do supernatural? Here, I don't know how well acquainted, I don't know if like Sam Hull pulled all the old Phoenix scripts and read over them and thought he could do better, or if Dan Curtis just said, hey, it's a Phoenix, kids, fire, go crazy. But here it feels like a very conscious effort to really tie it in a way where, okay, they're not retconning 1965. They're saying, okay, here's this piece in the 1700s. It's part of Barnabas' history. And for me, at least, and this is a personal interpretation, I can't cite anything within the show. It feels less like that Laura, the Phoenix, is just this general supernatural creature who just happens upon the first person they see and they go through that, but that this particular entity is kind of haunting the Collins family, that this is a specific target for this specific Phoenix.
Yeah. And there's what I love about it is it's elusive. There's more storytelling left to be done, and we never get to it, but that's all right because it just makes that universe that much bigger and richer.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a kissing scene between Dirk Wilkins and Laura, which I like. Dirk was head over heels for Laura. Somebody just needed to tell Dirk Wilkins, listen, just wait 100 years and she'll be back, no problem.
It would work for Charles Delaware Tate because he'd be around.
Yeah, do you think that Dirk and Charles were like, they knew each other? They're like, hey, we happen to look alike. Let's hang.
I'm sure they're cousins. Yeah.
Kissing cousins?
They walk alike. They talk alike. Lose your mind.
What's you guys' favorite scene in this episode here? 7:59.
Oh, it's Angelique's laugh when she has her. When she, at the end of the episode, the beginning of the next one, she's got her. Although Barnabas doing the voila is awfully good, also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think when my favorite is when Angelique is casting the spell that leads to the end, and she says that you're in the presence of your enemy, and your enemy is time, because it's not whatever dynamic Angelique and Laura had. Angelique isn't saying, I'm going to get you. Angelique it's almost a weird way of saying, yeah, here's the situation and it's going to affect you. And that way Angelique is like, hey, my hands are, my hands are washed. And then that sequence towards the end with the two kids, with Jameson and Nora, because most of it is just a close up with flames, using chroma key, where they go from, oh my God, mom's coming, to, wait, who the hell are you? You're not our mother. And then they cut to her in the old age makeup.
Yeah. The old age makeup is totally unnecessary and a wonderful touch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love David Selby's reaction to Angelique being destroyed. He is so freaked out by the whole thing. And I love him and Magnus' this reaction. He's like, haven't you done enough to me?
Yeah.
Really good.
If only they knew.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah. Episode 760, narrated by Lewis Edmonds, written by Gordon Russell, directed by Henry Kaplan. So this episode is where the kids are locked in a room. Laura is going to appear to them at the end, and she's old because Angelique has performed a spell that they will not recognize her, and that's why they don't recognize her. She's all old. She's got the old age makeup like Patrick was talking about. I love the whole effect. The whole thing was really well done. And by the way, in the previous episode, we got some cool green lighting to reveal Angelique in the room, which was really cool. Mm-hmm. This episode here, I love how they're wrapping up the Phoenix. They wrap up the Phoenix very well, and not exactly similar to the way to where they did it, or how they even did it, but a bit similar. In the 60s, it was in a shack by the sea.
So many were though in that time.
Yeah. What did you guys like about this episode?
For me, it rounds it out, and it's just watching 7:59 isn't quite enough because we get to see Laura's full panic and regret and sort of running around like a chicken with its head cut off, and that's fantastic. So that's kind of the other part of the ritual, I think.
Yeah, and I think in ending it like that, it's the main difference I think between Phoenix Mark II and Phoenix Mark I is that not just they realized what they could do better, but this feels like a much more satisfactory ending, because at least my memory of the first Phoenix arc was that it was just like, okay, David's in danger, and they're all rushing to save him. And okay, David and Roger reconnect on some level, and we go here. Here, it's much more. Even though Barnabas is the instigator, and he's acting for extra link, it's much more of it's people who know about the supernatural versus a bunch of people trying to figure out oh wait, this is weird, I can't believe this is unreal. And I think that gives it a slightly different edge, because it's no longer just there's this weird thing, we got to stop it. It's we know what the threat is. We know there's something here that's going to happen, but we also know its weakness, and we can stop it and take it. Because even Barnabas, I think in 759 says, Angelique, you could use your magic if it suits you. So why don't you use it because it suits you?
Yeah.
Also, in the very next episode, Barnabas is going to rescue the children, which causes Edward to raise eyebrows towards Barnabas's direction. So
yeah, we see how Edward thanks him.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting how the ball starts getting rolling, and Carl's death is going to be the key factor of everything, but not for a while. But I like how when Barnabas rescues the kids, Edward is starting to wonder. He questions Barnabas, but he's also wondering about him. Like, okay, you knew about the supernatural. You said Laura was supernatural. You seem to know a lot about the supernatural. It's a great setup by the writers.
It is, and I think, Edward has to kind of grow up a little bit here also. This is part of the origin of Edward Collins' Monster Hunter, because Barnabas was a better dad. Yeah. And he embarrassed him.
And it's also a nice little switch, because in 759, it's Laura's got the letter. That's going to reveal that Barnabas is the vampire. And Barnabas like, haha, I burned it. Go write another letter. Hey, no pen, no ink. But here, Barnabas is tripping himself up. Edward is not looking at it as, who's this, this guy's a vampire. He's looking at this, okay, yeah, there's something about this guy. He knows a little too much. And I think maybe this is the one of the few storylines in which Barnabas's attempts to be a better man end up tripping him up, not because he can't do it, but because other people are starting to notice that, hey, look, he knows things that are that nobody else should know. What's going on here?
Well, it's what Barnabas gets for showing off.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's now, in control of being a vampire. So, yeah, he's going to flex those muscles. He is going to be a superhero with a sunlight allergy.
Mm-hmm.
But, that you can't do that. You can't. You're going to blow your cover.
And right around the corner is Dirk Wilkins, the vampire.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's going to cause problems for Barnabas. I mean, how vicious was Dirk Wilkins, guys?
He's the scariest vampire on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he really.
I put him number 2, but yeah, he's scary for sure. He's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Great. Roger Davis was born to be a heel, like as an actor. Really, really great job. I prefer him playing a heel than a baby face.
Roger Davis is born to be any role he wants to be.
That is true. True. What's you guys' favorite scene in this episode?
Sorry. I gave you in this episode.
Oh yeah, the 7.
I don't really have a particular one in this one. I enjoy the whole thing. Angelique sort of explaining how she did it. Yeah. I think.
Yeah, I would say though, for me, it's the Edward starting to figure out what Barnabas is and being suspicious, because that leads him into an arc that goes in a slightly different direction. And I think one of the strengths of the 1897 storyline, at least for me, when we look at like 1795, a lot of that is hinted in the early Barnabas episodes. In 212 he gives the whole something my father loathed. Yeah, I'm back. I'm home. Why didn't you save me, Josette? Then I think it's 232 or 233 where he gives a speech to Victoria and Carolyn about the young woman and her lover on Widow's Hill. So a lot of that informs 1795. So they kind of had story beats that were pre-plotted. With 1897, with this particular flashback, it feels like this is, we've all said it's kind of like a new show, but it really feels like the writers, it feels like they can pull all this stuff out of whole cloth, and there's a freedom here, and you can see a lot more foreshadowing, like the doppelganger spell we'll figure out later. Edward's discovery of that will pay off later. So it feels like maybe at this point there's actually a functioning writer's room where, like, Dan Curtis is he's like, hey, I'm going to be putting golf balls. Unless there's a problem, don't bother me. And Sam and Gordon were like, oh yeah, let's party. Let's really knock it out of the ballpark.
I mean, the watchword for me with all of this, from a writing point of view, is Dan, we got this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We got this now.
Yeah.
We got it. And
you can tell the writers are in their element.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
I mean, they're this wonderful confidence.
Yeah. And I think too, what also helps is that, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about this because, I have a lot of free time. When you look at the choice of when Dark Shadows chose to flash back, 1795 makes sense because it's a historically insignificant period. Like you might get, you're not going to make too many. It's after the Revolutionary War. You can focus on family dynamics. But 1897 suggests the Gilded Age.
Mm-hmm.
If you squint, it suggests Sherlock Holmes. It suggests Gaslight, and it feels more at home for Dark Shadows.
It is also the year the Grand Guignol opened its doors, and it's the year Dracula was published.
Oh, I've been to the Grand Guignol. Their steak is just horrible. They do not know how to cook a steak.
They don't.
I know Sam Hall wrote the previous episode and Gordon Russell wrote this one, but here's another question about another writer. How important was Violet Wells? Because wrote 1897 as well.
Well, she wraps it up. She's really in charge of the major writing beats at the end of all of this.
Yeah, and something to consider, she actually ghost wrote some of the Gordon Russell scripts very early on. So I think she took a lot of her cue from, obviously, if Gordon's handing off scripts to her, he's telling her, we need this, this, and this. And she was actually working as a Broadway talent agent and doing Dark Shadows on the side, I guess for beer money. But I think she's important that she kind of learns the Gordon Russell style and then starts to make it her own. And I think having it under his name, it helps because, she, it's kind of like, I think it may have been a question of, I don't know if there's like a writers union for soap operas, or because she was a talent agent, she might get in trouble for doing two jobs. But I think there's a sense as she's blossoming later on that it's like, okay, she's not mimicking a voice. They've kind of realized that, hey, she's bringing something that towards the end we can see.
She certainly is one of the best and most solid writers in the series. I mean, she studied them very well, and it's like, oh, that's what you guys are doing? Yeah, I can do that. And she does.
Yeah, really, really. Dark Shadows had some great writers. My favorite scene in this episode is Angelique casting the spell to turn Laura Holt. It's like, oh my god! Like, if you couldn't put any more nail in Laura's coffin, that did it right there.
And again, that's the thing too, is that when Angelique casts that spell, it's like she's saying, it's very much pitched not as, okay, I'm going to throw my power at you because you are all this. She says, like, yeah, I align myself with the forces of darkness, but she says, hey, look, time is going to catch up with you. And the great thing is, if you want to take her very literally, even if you wanted to be one of those people that in your head canon, the spell didn't work, but because Laura's at the end of her life cycle, she got old because she didn't throw her kids into the fire, that fits as well. I do think it was Angelique kind of going, okay, well, hey, I'm going to throw some time at you and grow you old and speed this whole process up because, hey, I got stuff to do.
I got 2 shows in Vegas tonight.
I'm going to get myself a hot piece of Barnabas.
Yeah.
Barnabas.
She does. She really does. She really does. If she can't have him, she'll sub for she'll settle for Quentin, no problem.
Well, if she can't have him, she don't want nobody, baby.
Yeah.
Is there anything you guys want to add about these episodes?
They're just fun. They're marvelous. I love them. Yeah, they are standout moments in a standout section of the show.
What are you guys doing Sunday?
I may be recording a panel for a convention in January. So my schedule is kind of up in the air at that point. But if you and Patrick wanted to discuss the Dark Shadows episode, I would not be insulted.
So I could push it back to Monday if you're free, Gordon.
Okay, we can do Monday. Okay,
so Monday at 10, episode 706, guys. For links to Gordon Dymowski's Ed Was Up page is going to be in the description box. Links to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Book of Bow is going to be in the description box. Gentlemen, it is always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Farewell.